Do you know that there are some presents so big that nobody notices them? That they're so huge that they're hard even to see. They're so hard to see that the only way to know that they're there is to go clear back to the beginning. Or maybe a little before the beginning. So in the beginning, there was nothing. Except perhaps an enormous smile. But there was no one there to see it. And on the very first day, God gave us the gift of light. So now there's not just darkness, but dark and light. Now, I don't mean just the light in the light bulb or the car lights at night. I don't just mean this light or that light, but I mean all of the light that is light. God gave us the gift of the light that all light comes from. And when God saw the light, God said, "It is good." And that was the end of the first day. On the second day, God gave us the gift of water. Now, I don't mean just the water in a water glass or in the water in the bathtub or in the shower. I don't mean just the water in a river or a lake. I don't even mean the water in the ocean or the water that comes down from the sky in rain. I mean all the water that is water. This is all the water that all the rest of the water comes from. And this ark, this is the firmament, and it divides the waters above and the waters below. And when God saw the water, God said, "It is good." And that was the end of the second day. And on the third day, God gave us the gift of dry land. And God divided the water and the dry land and gave us the gift of all green and growing things. And when God saw the dry land and the green and growing things, God said, "It is good." And that was the end of the third day. And on the fourth day, God gave us the gift of the day and the night. And this gave us a way to count our days. And here's the great light that rules the day, the sun. And here are the lights that rule the night, the moon and the stars. And when God saw the day and the night, our way to keep time, God said, "It is good." And that was the end of the fourth day. On the fifth day, God gave us the gift of all the creatures that fly in the air. Now, not just the birds, but all of the creatures that fly and all of the creatures that swim in the water, all of them. And when God saw all of the creatures that fly and all of the creatures that swim, God said, "It is good." And that was the end of the fifth day. On the sixth day, God gave us the gift all the creatures that walk on the earth. Creatures that walk with many legs and the creatures that walk with 2 legs, like you and me. And that was the day when God put God's own image within us. And when God saw the creatures that walk with 2 legs and the creatures that walk with many legs, and all of the gifts of the other days, God said, "It is very good." And that was the end of the 6th day. Now, on the 7th day, God rested and gave us the gift of rest. And to remember the great gifts of all the other days. Now, there is nothing here because people go to different places to remember the great gifts. You can imagine someone show your favorite place to remember. It might be your backyard by a tree, in a church, in your room. It might be in the mountains or by the ocean or a lake. I don't know where your place is, only you know. What I know is that this day is so special that sometimes Jewish people mark it with 2 special candles, and the Christian people, well, they might mark it with a cross. The Jewish people might go to a synagogue where you might see the Star of David. Now, I wonder which of these days you like the best. I wonder which day is the most important. I wonder which day is especially about you. I wonder if we could leave out any one of these days and still have all that we need.
The Color of Love and How the Rest of the World Was Painted. Written by the Reverend C. Ronald Wilson, illustrated by Kimberly Wilson Santo. It was a long time ago, a time before you were born, a time almost forgotten. It was a time when God created the world. At that time, the world was black and white. There were no colors. Angels told God that the world needed color. So God got a great bucket of heavenly paint. And he told each angel to take some paint, and the color of everything they painted would be named after them. Lady Yellow was very old, and she took a pail of heavenly paint and painted the sun. And little drops of paint dropped down to earth and painted a few flowers and the fur of a tabby cat. And Ms. Green took a large bucket and filled it with heavenly paint and came to earth. And she painted the leaves on the tree and each blade of grass and the stems of plants and the eyes of cats. And Mr. Blue took his large bucket and filled it with heavenly paint. And on the way down to earth, he tripped and spilled his paint throughout the sky and over the seas. And young Ms. Brown took a smaller pail of heavenly paint and came to earth to paint the rocks and the land. And each angel took some paint and added their name to the things on the earth. And the earth was now filled with bright colors, purple, orange, violet, and indigo, 1,000 colors named after 1,000 angels of heaven. There were just a few drops of paint in the heavenly paint bucket. Heaven's youngest angel, Little Red, as she was known, asked God if she could paint some of the things on earth. And so the youngest angel took the few drops left and came to earth and painted a few flowers and some berries. She had a drop left and she looked around and saw the heart of God's greatest creation, the human family. Mothers and fathers and children all loving and caring for each other. The youngest angel took the last drop of heavenly paint and painted a human heart. We see very little red in our world. And when we see red, we think of love. And how we should love and care for each other, just as we want others to love and care for us. The end.
So let's close with a prayer. This book's called Thank You, God, for the Wonderful World. Thank you, God, for golden sunshine that makes the bright new day. Thank you, God, for soft rain that makes the flowers grow. Thank you, God, for the breeze that lifts the kite so high. Thank you, God, for rainbows that light up rainy skies. Thank you, God, for leafy trees where birds can make their nest. Thank you, God, for nuts and berries to feed the hungry animals. Don't see this often in Houston. Thank you, God, for silent snow that muffles the noisy world. Thank you, God, for the moon and skies that wink at me at night.